Hey everyone, it's Steve from the garden. In today's video, I'm going to be starting up some hydroponic lettuce, and I'm going to go through the different things that you need to get started. When it comes to growing hydroponically, what you're working with is you have a water and a nutrient solution. So in my case, I have a grow solution and I have a bloom solution. Since I'm going to be growing lettuce, I don't need it to bloom, so I'm only going to be using the grow portion of that. The next thing I need is something to adjust the pH of the water. And so that's some pH down. Now my water tends to run around 7.1, 7.2 pH. So by adding some of the pH down, it gets the pH of the water down to 6.0, which is where you need it to grow lettuce or most other things hydroponically. And to go with that, you need a pH meter so you can actually test the water to see what the pH is. Next thing you need is these little baskets, and these little baskets hold the rock wool, which is where the seeds in the plant grow from. This is what the rock wool looks like. Now they're supposed to be like some sort of a spun rock. I'm not really sure truly what they're made of, but they act like a sponge, and they allow it to soak up the nutrient and water, keep the seed moist, and then the roots of the plant can grow down through it into the water. Which leads us to the next thing is I have an air pump and an air stone. And what that does is when you put the air pump in there, this air stone creates real fine bubbles and keeps the water circulating. And that helps prevent algae from growing into the water. And it also provides oxygen so that the roots of the plant go into the water and those bubbles create the oxygen that the plant needs for growing. Another thing you need is some of these little clay balls. And what that does is when you put the rock wool within the little basket, there's always like a little bit of a light space there. So by putting the clay balls on the top, you just help block out the light, and again, that's really to help keep algae from growing within the water. For my actual container, I'm using a 17-gallon tote, and what I did is I drilled a hole right here in the front, put a rubber grommet on there, and then one of these elbows, and then attached this tube in here. And what this tube does is it allows me to monitor the water level within the tote, because as you fill it up, that means the tube's going to fill up too. And another thing it allows me to do is that if I need to drain any of the water out, I can simply tip it down and the water comes out, and I can empty that water into a bucket, flip it back up, and then add, say, fresh water in here. On the back side, I drilled a hole so that I can rub my tubing for the air stone in there. That way the air stone stays on the inside and the pump stays on the outside, obviously. And that provides that air circulation that we need. For holding the little baskets, I drilled 1 1/4 inch holes into this top. Now, I put 9 holes in here. I have grown hydroponically before, and in hindsight, I really should have just put 6 holes in this lid. Yes, you can grow 9 plants in this, and it does work, but once they kind of get the full size, it gets a little bit crowded. So I think 6 plants for a 17-gallon tote would be the perfect spacing. So now that we've gone over all the things that we need to grow hydroponically, I need to fill this tote up with some water. And it's going to fill up not quite to the top, but pretty close. Because ideally what you want is for the water to be just at the bottom level of the little basket here. That way the rock wool can soak up that water, provide it to the seed, so that the plant can grow. I've put about 4 gallons of water in here so far. So I'm going to take this opportunity to feed the tube for the air stone in here. Hook that up. Pop that in the water. And I'll go ahead and turn that pump on. For mixing together the nutrient solution, it calls for 2 to 3 tablespoons per gallon of water. Now I know from experience filling up this tote once before, it uses roughly about 15 gallons of water, and there's 48 teaspoons per cup. So that'd be 30 to 45 teaspoons. I'm going to go with 3/4 of a cup of the nutrient solution. And it's better to go maybe slightly under the max because you can always add more later on. There we go. Pretty much uses up this container. With the water circulating, I'm going to go ahead and add the nutrients into the water so they begin circulating also. I also know from experience that I'm going to need at least 2 capfuls of the pH down to bring the pH of the water down to where it needs to be. So I just fill the cap twice. And then I'll continue putting water into the bin, and then, as I pour that water in, it's going to circulate, get mixed in along with the nutrient solution. And then once the bin is full, then I will measure the pH one more time, then make whatever adjustments I need to. Another thing I need to do now that the bin is full of water is I need to test the pH. So I got my pH meter ready. So I'll simply put that into the water and see what the pH comes out to. So the pH is coming out to like 6.1 to 6.12. So I could add just a little bit more of the pH down in here, but I think that's close enough to 6.0 that I'll just leave it. For the varieties of lettuce I'm going to grow, I'm going to do one of freckled romaine, some Paris Island romaine, and some coastal star, which is another romaine. I can put the little basket in and see where the water level is. So it's coming up maybe 1/4 inch or so from the bottom. It's about right here in the basket, which that'll work just fine for getting the rock wool started. So the rock wool cube will get pushed in. Now that we have the rock wool cubes in place, we know the seed varieties we're going to be growing. I'm just going to go ahead and drop, 4 or 5 seeds in each of these cubes to get them started. Now that I have the seeds planted in each cube, I know I don't need 5 or 6 plants growing on each cube, but I will just thin them out as needed. Now another thing I don't want to do is to have 3 plants in a row like this. So I'm going to go ahead and move one of these here, and I'll move this other one over here. It's important to fill the empty ones up with the little clay balls. That's to block the light so that light doesn't reach the water and starts causing algae to grow. We also want to cover up the little light gap right here. Now, since this cube fits this little basket really well, there's not a lot of gap in here, but just the same, I'm going to put some of the clay balls in place to block any light that gets up, or block any light from getting down to the water. I will do a quick check to see if the bin is level. And if it's not, I will prop it up a little bit. Now you probably won't see this too well on the camera, but it's not completely level. So I'm just going to use some of these wood shims to put it underneath the tote to level it off. There, I did that, and that looks pretty good. The reason that's important is because if it's not level, like right now there's nothing in the back, but if it's not level, then the water won't reach the baskets evenly, and you could end up with a case where, like say, the one side of the bin has water covering up the basket, and the other side it's maybe below the basket. So having it level, it should be even throughout the whole thing. Now you may have noticed I started 3 lettuce plants, and I have spaces where I'm going to intend to grow 6. So what I'm going to do is in 2 weeks I'll start 3 more plants, and that'll give me a continuous harvest until I'm able to grow lettuce outside. I also have some lettuce growing over here in some soil, and that's also staggered in terms of planting time, but they won't grow anywhere near as fast as this hydroponic lettuce. And from previous experience, it takes about 30 days to go from putting the seed in to having a full head of lettuce to harvest with the hydroponic system. To show that rapid growth progression, I'm going to take a series of pictures of the lettuce growing along with how many days that is. And that way in a future video I'll do a follow-up with all this where we harvest lettuce and we'll see that progression and how many days it took to get to that full harvest size. So until then, I hope you enjoyed, hope you got something out of this, and we'll see you on the next one.